Hello, this is John from caveofprogramming.com, and in this tutorial we're going to start looking at working with SQL using JSTL. So we've already seen an example of creating a JDBC data source, a JNDI data source, and working with it using JDBC. And we're going to do the same thing here, except that instead of writing JDBC code in a servlet or in these ugly scriptlet tags, we're going to use slightly more elegant JSTL tagging to deal with the SQL, and that's going to enable us to encapsulate a lot of functionality on our JSP pages, so that our controller can actually be a lot simpler. Because one of the problems with the way that we did things before was that the controller really looked very ugly with all the kind of exceptions and things that had to be handled. So this is going to hopefully help matters a lot. Now, JSTL tags actually come in several different types, and we've been working with those that have a C prefix here so far, but now we're going to start working with another prefix, and it's the SQL prefix. So I'm just copying this taglib directive and altering C to SQL, and that will enable us to work with the SQL prefix on this page. And I've configured a data source for this project in exactly the same way that I showed you how to configure a data source before for the JDBC queries. And I'm going to tell this page now what data source I want to use here. And to do that, I'll just say SQL, because that's the prefix we're going to use. This is matching this. SQL colon and set data source, capital D, capital S. And I'll say there that the data source is, and my JNDI data source is called JDBC / webshot, and we saw how to configure that in a previous tutorial. And a common pattern with JSTL tags you may have noticed is that you have a var attribute that specifies that kind of handle. In fact, it sort of creates expression language variable that you can then use to access something that you did previously. So here I'm going to say that my data source handle is ds using the var attribute. So I've just made that name up. And this means now that later on I can create a query by saying SQL query, and I need to say data source equals ds, so that's just matching this, and that's giving me a handle to this data source. And actually that needs to be, this is saying what the name of the expression language variable will be, and here I need to, this is going to be actually expression language, so I need to say, I need to surround it with a dollar and curly parentheses like this. And I can now specify some SQL, which I'll do in just a second, and I can specify a place to put the results, and again it's like the same pattern again. The handle for the results I name using var, so I'll say var equals results, let's say, like that. Let's just complete that. Now I thought about showing you another login form example with this website, but we've already seen an example of a login form, and with the exception that you can use JSTL and expression language to refer to your beans and your the stuff that you pass in from your servlet, forms is going to be more or less the same in JSTL as it is in using scriptlets, just that you use JSTL and expression language instead to do a lot of things. So that being so, I thought I'd show you something different to keep things interesting, and I've created a table. Let's see, if I go to I'm using the free MySQL Workbench tool here that you can download along with the free MySQL Community Edition database, and this has got this table here. I've got a table called images in a webshot database here, database called webshot. And this lists a bunch of images, and on flickr.com you can actually download images that have a license that lets you use them commercially, as long as you kind of of give an attribution to whoever created the image. So I've got an attribution name and an attribution URL here, and I've got the name of the image, and I've given them IDs as well. And I have a space here to rank the images, and I'm going to use that in subsequent tutorials. But now these image names, so this stem together with the extension here, they correspond to images that I put in a pics subfolder of my web content directory here, and I'm going to use those images in this tutorial. So let's go back to the query, and my query then is going to be select, let's say select star, select everything from images, and I'll say limit 10, so we just get 10 images to put on the page as a demonstration. And now I've done that, I can now iterate through these results, and you can catch exceptions as well with JSTL, but I won't go into that here. Let's assume that the SQL is well formed and then it's going to work. I'm going to say here I'm going to use the C prefix, C for each, and we've seen this previously, of course. And let's move that down there, and I'm going to say here var equals, and let's call this image, and the thing I want to iterate through here is going to be the results from my SQL query. So I'm going to say here items equals results dot rows, and results here is just the name of the variable that I specified here. And actually, again, there's this common pattern that you specify the name of an expression language variable, and then later on when you use it, you have to treat it like actual expression language and wrap it in a dollar followed by curly parentheses like this. So let's put that in here, if I can get this right, and close the parentheses here. So now within this for each loop, we're going to have access to image, and that an image will give us as a variable here. I specified image, well, I'm specifying the image here, and that expression language variable will then give us access to the items in the table, because I did select star, so I can get everything from my table. For example, I can get the stem here and the image extension. So let's take a look. I'm going to say here, let's just take an example. Let's use a p tag, and I'll close my p tag here, and I'll just go through, and for each item I'll output, let's use expression language, so I'll say dollar and parenthesis, then image, which is my variable name here, and then I can specify a column from my database, since I'm selecting all of them, a column from my table. So I'll say image.stem, and let's also have here, let's output image dot, what did I call it? Let's see. I want also image.extension, which is the file name extension. So I'll say extension. These should exist in my table, and let's put a dot between them there to make it look actually like a file name. Now finally, hopefully, if I've saved everything, so if I run this is my home page that I'm editing here. Let's run this and see if it works. And oh yeah, I've got a error here, set data source not defined. In fact, what I forgot was that when I specify the URI here, so I changed the prefix to SQL, but I also I forgot to change the URI here, which is no longer JSTL core, it's JSTL SQL. So it looks exactly the same as the one for the C prefix, except you've got a C and a core, and that's changed to a SQL and SQL. So I'm pretty confident this will work. Let's see. So let's run this and run on server. And now I've got the names of my images, and I haven't got the extension, so let's get rid of this error actually. And let's see, so I called this extension here, and in my table it's actually image extension, so that's why. Let's try this, image extension, and I'll run that once more, run on server, and there we go. Now they actually do look like file names. Now I've got some issues here actually with my HTML, because my footers seems to be my text here seems to be running into the footer. But let's not worry about that. Just to round off this tutorial, what I'll do is I will just make the image bit actually work. Actually, no, I won't. I'll do that in the next tutorial. So join me again then, and until next time, happy coding.